Hey friends, I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee, paying my respects to George Jones. This is his final resting place. It's George Jones's grave. It's a very, very impressive stone. As far as country stars' tombstones go, Hank Williams might have the only one that's quite as big that I've visited at least. But it's a beautiful day here in Nashville, a little bit of breeze, and there's some noise in the background from construction. I apologize if you can hear that. But there are quite a few really interesting people buried in this graveyard. I used to come here and get some coffee and just go for walks. I've been here 15, 20 times over the years when I lived in Nashville. There's Tammy Wynette's buried here. Jerry Reed is buried here. Dobie Gray. There's quite a few really interesting, amazing folks. And right here in this spot, I believe this is called the Garden of the Grand Tour. And there's a fence put up around it now. It's a little area, a little smaller than a football field, that there wasn't a fence the last time I was here a few years ago. The rumor that I have always heard, there's a lot of empty space right here near George Jones's grave. The rumor that I've always heard, and I don't know if it's true, so forgive me, is that George bought up a lot of spaces so that some of his friends could be buried near him, and he wanted to help people out if they didn't have the money to bury themselves. And along with that idea, his old buddy Johnny Paycheck is buried just 25 feet from where I'm standing right now. And Johnny Paycheck, was friends with George Jones for a long, long time. They knew each other for quite a while. And Johnny Paycheck died broke, and George Jones paid for the funeral and the spot. And so it's nice that they're close to each other now. Now, I don't know if any of these other graves I'm about to mention are related, but Billy Sherrill, the producer who produced He Stopped Loving Her Today, the Grand Tour, just so many great, great recordings that George Jones and a lot of other people did. Billy Sherrill is probably 50 yards from me right now, facing George Jones' grave. It's on the opposite end of this little courtyard. He's buried over there. I don't know if that was planned or an accident. And then the Titans, Rob Baronis, who died tragically a few years back, he's buried probably 25 feet behind this camera, from where I am now. I don't know if he was friends with George, if it had anything to do with anything. Sometimes it's a complete coincidence who you end up buried next to. But last thing I want to share is on the day that George Jones was buried, his funeral, I was sitting in a bar that night near Music Row, and it was a lot of people, music industry people or people, musicians and such, writers. Packed bar, really, really, really super loud. People talking really loud. Somebody put He Stopped Loving Her Today in the jukebox. And this is probably 5 or 6 hours after George Jones was laid to rest right here. But somebody put it in the jukebox, and it's really loud. And then one at a time, people started to realize what song was playing, and people started getting quiet. And just one after another, everyone started to shut up. And about 30 seconds into the song, it was dead silence. It's complete silence as everybody just sat there quietly and listened to George Jones sing He Stopped Loving Her Today. And everybody stopped, and when the song was over, there wasn't a song that played after it. It was just a little more silence, and then people started slowly talking again. But it wasn't planned. It wasn't, hey, everybody, let's orchestrate this moment. It was just a spontaneous moment of people who grew up listening to George Jones and loving his music and loving his body of work, that everyone decided to have a moment of silence in his honor, completely spontaneous. And it was a beautiful thing, and it stuck with me. And so I appreciate you guys coming here, watching this, and paying your respects to George Jones with me. I'm going to go over here and pay my respects to Johnny Paycheck. But if you enjoy this, like this video, tell me your favorite George Jones song down below, and subscribe to this channel. and I'll see you guys soon. Much love to you.